So this is our like lightning web component session, and this is training day 18 sessions. So just for the recap, I covered most of the scenarios in the session. And just recap about my company, I have a 360-degree cloud technology. I worked as a senior Salesforce developer in that company, and we have 5 apps on App Exchange. 360, our most used apps is 360 SMS app, and yeah, we have 6 office, 5 in India and 1 is in USA. So we have around 5 flagship products, and we have around 400 plus certifications and 40 plus partners uh, that are working with us on a projects that we are providing a service and development to clients, our clients. About myself, I'm a senior Salesforce developer having 6 years of experience in Salesforce domain, and I've worked as a senior Salesforce developer right now. And I have some experience in LWC, ORAS, and Apex development. So yeah, yesterday we covered about like introduction to LWC, why and how to use, what is the use of LWC, why it is coming where we already have Aura. And about that we covered uh, how to work with LWC and how to work with, there are some JS fundamentals that before we start the LWC development we have to some knowledge about the JavaScripts, because generally in LWC we use JavaScript most of the time. And how to set up a development environment, so it's a brief about the how to we can set up a development environment, like how to install CLI, VS codes, and some extension that can be helpful in the developments, because the developer console is not capable enough to develop the LWCs. And after that we learned about some LWC fundamentals, like basic hello world components from to create input sections and to data binding, so we can get the input from the users and get the input behind the controller in the controller. So learned about the LWC component bundle. And also we learned about the conditions, if statements, if true, if false statements in HTML. So we can, based on some conditions, based on some criteria, we can learn about these things. We can show and hide some of the informations in from the page, from the UI. And we learned about the iterations and looping. When we have a collections of data, then if we want to iterate over a list or over a array, then we can use uh, iterations or for each. So we learned about that. After that we learned about the decorators of track decorator and wire decorator. So these are, track decorators make use of reactive properties, and wire is used for the when we have to access the Salesforce data. So that is we cover so far. So yeah, today we are going to learn about the call a method imperatively. So yesterday we saw some examples of how to wire a property, how to access a Salesforce data, how to call a Apex method from JavaScript controller to server side controller, how to communicate. So we learn about 2 things: wire a property and wire a function. So in a wire a property, just a single piece of code, a single line of code. From that we can call Apex methods. And in a wire a function, when we have to uh, pass the data, when we handle the we have to handle the processing, when we, if there are some errors or there is some data processing needs to done after the call, after the server side hit. So we can use a wire functions. And there is 3 things. Third thing is call a method imperatively. So how to call a method imperatively, so we will learn about that. So let's create a component. So, so I am just getting some information from this because I have to show these things. So just for a recap, we have a lightning card that have title search account with right now I'm using a imperative method. Here there is one lightning input field that whatever we have to search about the accounts, we just type a name based on the text input. It search for the name, it search for the where name is just like this. It search for this query where account name is like whatever the key here, right? So here I will remove this condition. And in the JS file, let me first I have to import. Yeah, so I have to import apex class method. So for this is the same syntax. We can get import getting the name of we can get name of variables and the syntax here where we can use apex class name and the method name that we want to invoke here. After that yeah, we are using some of the variables. Search key is for the to whatever we typing the that will hold the value of that in the search key. And accounts, when we get the accounts we can assign this to this. And after that yeah, so now let's move to imperative method. So we have one event, like we have one to on change. When the value is changing in an input text, we want to list down the accounts, all the accounts details. So in the event I will take a constant search key and target dot value. Okay, using away, yeah, I get the search key here. And in the search key now for the imperative, what I can do, it's just a simple syntax, like just like in the wire you can see we have called a wire, right? Binding up, wired up the get account, whatever we importing we have to just call. And if there are certain parameters we have to pass the parameters. And after that we can assign this wired to one variable. And if there is some processing, like we have to use the data and error, then we can process the data in the same way. Let me copy this. In the same way we can use imperative property. So you can see we are using the wire, right? So what we can do, we can just replace the wire and just use a get accounts. We are calling a get account, and we can pass the parameter like this. So we just have to get account, just like we call a function, right? So we can call a function, and if you want to pass a parameter, just make sure if you're passing a parameter, we have to pass it like a object, right? So in the mid curly braces, we have to pass whatever the variable name it's defined here, the same spelling we have to use here. And the search key, the variable that are binding, we are binding. So this one done. So here in the wired, we use a variable called like wired account, and then processing our data and error. Here in the imperatives, we can just use, get the call the get accounts in the single line and pass the variables. Now we just have to handle the data and also the error. So what we can do, dot then hello, yeah. So in the data, uh, we get the data and error. So here we can get the date result, and instead of error, we are catching the error in the catch section, and we are using here the arrow functions to handle the error, to handle the response. So if the result was successful, then I can use here uh, yeah, let me call it as a data only. And here yeah, so you can see this is just a single difference. We are just calling same way the method, and instead of using one particular variables, we are using this variable, and in that we have to use a dot then and dot catch. So in the dot then, it means if the result is successful, we are not getting an error, then it will go here, and the process, we are processing the data in the accounts. And if there is one error, there is something error, some happens, then it will show into error, and it will give me the error, right? So I will just remove that. So if that run is successful, it will go into the accounts. These accounts will show me the results. If the accounts have some data, then it will process like a collections of data, and for each account we can get the account name here based on our search account input, right? So let's yeah, and this is, we have to make it as a true. Target instead of lightning home page. Let's deploy this component. Component is deployed. Open the org. go to page. Let's remove this. We have imperative method function. Save it. This is for the search account with wired properties, and this is will be the wired method. So when I typing here, you can say this is put the result here. Yeah, and one more thing, like instead of using binding, we can just use a particular variable. You can see, right, based on some data, it is giving me the result. So this is where we can use the imperative function, imperative methods. Uh, this is the syntax. We have to call a variable that we are importing, and after that we have to pass parameters like this. Whatever the variables, we can just use like as this. In the wired, we are using like a dollar sign with the binding. Here we can just use it, is it just use the variables, and if we have the results, if we have the data, then we can use the accounts result, and if we have the error, then we have to catch it in a dot catch section, and we can just catch the error. Based on the error, we can show the error to the users. So this is we can call a method imperatively. And let's discuss like what is wire versus imperatively. So generally wire is recommended by the Salesforce because of its fast processing, and wire fits nicely in the overall LWC reactive architectures. So that is why we use a wire mostly. So in the wire we have as you know, we have two methods: wire and apex method as a property or as a functions, right? So preferred way is used wire as a property, like a single piece of code, where if we don't want to process the data, we don't want to perform any actions on the data, so then we can use a wire as a properties, right? So however, we have some use case where we have to require to use imperative apex. Like for examples, when you need to invoke an apex method without responsive parameters, like a button click event, when we have to click on a button or click on a link, or maybe click on a checkbox to make it uh, invocable, then we use a imperative method. So here are some considerations. First, like import the apex method into a JS, just like we use import section here. So we have to import the apex class on the particular method from that apex class. So we have to import this. After that, if it is a wired, if the we are using this import method as a wire, then make sure we use a cacheable true, but for the imperative it is not necessary. And yeah, parameter are passed as an object. So whatever we are parameter passing, if there are multiple parameters, then we have to use a comma separated, and we have to pass it as an object. Like object means curly braces. In the curly braces we have to write down the key value pair. The key will be whatever the parameter we are mentioning here, right? So whatever the same spelling we have to use in the same case sensitive, because JavaScript is very case sensitive. So we have to use that. We have to make sure we can use a simple spelling, and after that there is three consideration: when to use wire as a property, when to use a wire as a function, and where to use imperative. So if you want a simple result, just invoking apex and get the result, showing the results like in the UI, then we can use a wire to a property. If want to some processing like data processing, or based on some data, or based on error showing, we have to do some things, then we can use wire to a functions. And for controlling, like when we clicking on a button, the method should invoke and give the results, then we can use imperative. Means when we want to perform some actions on a particular events, like button clicks or link, or when I click on checkbox or something, so we can use imperatives. Because there are some advantage and disadvantage of wire as well. That is why the Salesforce introduced imperative methods. So advantage of wire is it is more faster than the imperative call, because of the like LWC reactive architectures. The wire property is more faster, and it can be refresh the data, because we are using a cacheable true. Means the data, some data can be placed in a cache memory. So if you want to refresh the data, so we can use a refresh apex method. And when it is more useful when we have to use Salesforce data, when we have to invoke the Salesforce data like from the schema, when we have to use accounts pick list or account industry pick list. Like let's suppose we have to show the industry pick list data, all the data we want to fetch, right? So we can use wire properties, because it can more faster and can give more results on that. So when we have to use a schema, generally we use a wire properties. There are some disadvantage of wire as well. We can't control over rem because of its reactive properties. So whenever wired have some data on the variable, it invoke automatically. We can't control over its run, where like when to run the wire, when not to run wire, we can't control over it. So the function is invoked whenever a value is available on particular variable, which can be like before or after the component is connected or rendered. Let's suppose component is rendered and loaded, and after that the value is coming like maybe from the third uh, third integrations, third party integrations, then it can be a problem, right? So we have to make sure that we are using right away. And we can't mutate the data in apex functions, because we are using cacheable. So we can't mutate, or we can't use the data as we want. Like particular for a button, the data can refresh, right? So we can't use that in a wire properties. So these are the things that you need to put some consideration when to use a wire and when to use an imperative. And in wire also we have properties and functions, so when to use that properties and when to use the functions. So make sure you are using a right thing. So next we will move to communication between a lightning web components. So when there are certain, most of the use case in the particular objects, in a particular projects or clients, that clients want to communicate, like there are some requirements in the projects that we want to pass some data from one component to another components. So these components can be of two types. So one is related, one is unrelated. uh, so in related we have two types, like parent to child and child to parent. So what is mean by parent to child? Parent to child is just we use for when we have to pass parameters from outside of the component to the inside of a component. Means if the two components are linked to each other, then we have to pass parameters from outer component to inner component, then it is called a parent to child communication. And when we want to pass the parameters from inner components to the outer component, then we use a child to parent communication. And when the component is not related to each other, it means there is no connections, there is no relation between the components, and then we have to invoke one component from another component based on some data, then we use communication between unrelated components. So there are certain things and there are certain operations for every communication we need to follow. So let's start with that. So let's first start with parent to child communications. So in the parent to child communication, there is one decorator that I didn't mention. Like we discussed the decorators, we discussed the wire decorator. So the third decorator was API decorator at the rate API. So for communication of parent to child, we have to use a API decorator in the child components, right? Because we are communicating from parent to child, right? We are passing a data from outer component to inner component. So to make a inner component publicly publicly display or publicly accessible, we use at the rate API decorators. So in child component, we declare the variables, any variables with the API decorators, and in the same in the parent components, we use the child component like this. And if we want to pass the data, whatever we variables we want to pass, we just make it like this. So let's start with hands-on. So let's create one component, parent component, and also child component. So as I told you, when we had to make it a child component, any variables publicly accessible, then we use. So let's start with deploying. We use a lightning card with the title child component. Here we have to display the value. Let's suppose I'm taking as a child value here. So in the JS, for this variable, I can use a child value here, and I want to make it to the publicly accessible, right? So I can use a API decorator. For that, I have to import the API. So this is it. We have to do it in a child component, and let's start with the parent component development. So for the parent components, we are using lightning card title parent component. Here here you can see we have to make we have to call the child component inside a parent component. So how to call a child component? So when we have to follow the kebab casing. This is called a kebab casing. So let's suppose the child component name is child comp, like this. So for this if you want to call this component, so we have to make sure like we produce prefix a c slash the child is this small. So if uh, one letter is coming as a capital letter, then we have to pass with the dash and the whatever the letter in a small. So this is called a kebab casing. Let's suppose we have use of this child component, not like this. Then we have to use just child comp, just like this. Because all are small letters, then we don't have to worry about the kebab casing. But one is capital, then we have to make sure that we use dash and c, like this. So this is way we are using this. Same as c dash, use a child dash c component, right? So this is the way we are calling the child component. Now we have to pass it some parameters, right? So let's declare one variable here in the parent component. This is my parent value. I am making as a default parent value. And now in the child we have a child value, right? A child component that have child value. I make it as a child value. Now I have to pass it the parameters here. So here I am using right now the camel casing, right? So for same as we use the kebab casing, when we have to call a components, the same way if we are calling a child component variable, we have to use the same kebab casing. So here like this, right? Child value. So instead of v, capital V, we are passing like this dash V, and here we can pass it our data from the parent. So what is the data here, right? Here we don't have to mention a API decorator because we are passing the values from outer to inner, right? We are not publicly exposing, right? We are not referencing the data, we are just passing a data. So that is why we are not using @API to the parent value, but we are referencing the child component variable inside the parent component. So that is why we have to make sure that we use API decorator with the child variable, right? So let's deploy all this. So for this we have to only make it true for the, we have to expose only the parent component, because automatically when it is connected to child component, the child component is automatically visible. So let's deploy first child component. Yes, child is running successfully. Yeah. we have one variable, one component available. With that, save it. When it is loading, you can see it is giving me parent value, but you can see I am default, as a default I am using passing very setting the child value with the child value, right? So it should be appear with the child value, but as I called here a child value parameter and pass the value, right? Parent value. The parent value is what? Parent, my parent value. So it will appear only this, right? So this is the way we are passing the any variable. If you want to pass a variables, pass some variables from parent to child, we can use it. And suppose there is one thing, when we have to pass it a method, like the child has some function, right? The function in the JS, and we have to call it that function, a particular function. Then how can we use that? So inside a child component, we just have to use a function. Yeah, I just use a function using @API child method. Let's use alert. Child method is calling from parent. So if we are calling a function, particular function, then we have to use a child method. We create a function, and it's, after that we can just use a prefix @API. How to use it in a parent? Just we have to make sure, like if we are using a particular event and we have to call it an event, then we have to use a child component where just a variables. Just show you, I'm showing you. So let's suppose I am clicking on a button called child method handler. So button, child method. On click of this button, I want to call my child method, right? Let's deploy event. Let's use one alert. Parent button is calling. Let's deploy it. So right now I just created a button in a parent component, like called child method. Right now it is not, it is doing just simple on click of the child method handler, it will just give me an alert like this, parent, like parent button is calling, right? It is not just doing. Now if I want to call this, on click of this button, I want to invoke the child method, this method, like I want to show this alert, maybe like child method is calling from parent, like this alert. What I can do, I can just use I have to just declare a var. Why I'm using a var? Because I want it to publicly, like globally, my to variable this set as a globally. That is why I'm using a var here. And here there is one syntax. We have to call this dot template dot query selector. So inside this query selector, what is it do? It will invoke my child component. It will just give me all the query, all the components, definitions, events, all the events will give me here in the child components, right? So how to call a child component? Just like we use here, C child component like this. So we have to use it like this, a C of child component. And in this, you have to just call it a child component var, a variable. We assign this to a variable, right? And now dot our method, the child method. So what is this method? This is method is calling child method, and that's it. So what we do, we are using a var variable here and child component var, in which the child component we are using a query selector of child component, and from the child component variable we are just calling our child method, right? So okay, let's deploy it. Right, so first when I click on the button, this one, it will give me first alert this, and after that it should give me this alert. So click, parent button is calling, after click on OK. Okay, it is giving some error. Child method here, I am passing. Okay, let me, I think it is stopping. Let's use the console log here instead of this. I think, oh, I didn't deploy this, that is why. So click on this, yeah, I forgot to deploy the child component, so that is why it is not invoking the child method API. So right now you can see the child method is calling from parent. Same way we can use alert as well, like this. let's deploy first. So basically like alert, this alert, when we click on the call, right, parent button is calling. So what when we click, just I click on OK, then only it will go into the line number 8, right? So this, it is going to line number 8, and then after the child method will invoke and it will give me child method is calling from a parent, right? So same way we can use either, generally we use console log statements, but I show the alert here. Let's suppose we are passing the child method, like we are just invoking a child method here, but if I want to pass it, uh, directly pass it some parameters, right? If you want to pass it some parameters in the child method from a parent component, so how we can pass it? We have to just make sure in the child component we are handling the passing, right? So when I'm using first parameter, let's suppose I'm using a first param, and here second param, right? So based on that, first param and second param, based on that I have to show, suppose any child method here, right? So here I can use a show child method, and I want to show child value from a method, right? So when we click on the button, then it should only show me that, right? So for this, what I can use, I can just use a template if true, and here if this is true, I will, first parameter will be my uh, boolean, right? So first parameter, let's suppose first parameter will be my this dot show child variable, whatever we are passing, either true or false, right? And here child value from method, so whatever we method are passing, right? So here I can use, if it is true, then I'm just showing, let's make it as bold. Yeah, so what is happening, this method is taking two parameters. First parameter will be the boolean, and second parameter whatever we are passing the value here. So if this is calling and this is true, then it should show me this value, and it should show me the child value whatever with the method is coming, right? So let's deploy, and here I have to pass it the parameters, right? So I get the child component calling, right? So just use first param, right? I have to show it, and let second param, here I will using one variable like child method is calling from parent, right? That method is calling from a parent, right? In the method, I have to just pass the parameters, right? And let's deploy. Let's comment this. Right, when we click on the child call child, right, it is calling call child is calling from parent. When just like I click on OK, you can see it is showing me. So child method is calling from parent. So we passing the parameters, right? It is showing me, it is giving me a true. So whenever it is true, it is giving me this variable. Now suppose I want, this is just a single string statement. Now I have to pass it some object, like in the object I have to pass it some variables and some for every variable I can't use like parameters, right? Different parameters. So what we can use, we can just use a single object. We can just pass it object as well. So this is LWC testing. In this testing, we just call it LWC parent to child communication happening, right? We have to pass it this, and for this we are using we have to handle this because the second parameters is coming. Let's deploy first. Let's see what we got. If we are calling it, what should it show, right? So when we call a call child, right, it is showing me a object, right? Why? Because here I am taking a second parameter as an object, right? And in the child component I am just showing this object, right? So how to show the value? Same way, just I told you, like we can use json dot stringify, and let's use it. You can see, right? Yes, LWC testing, whatever we are use typing here, it just show me, right here. Now suppose I want to just using the like LWC testing, I don't want to show like this in a JSON format or in the format. I just want the value of that, and the what I just want to show these value only, right? So what I can do, I can just inside instead of using a second like this one stringify, I can just use this dot LWC testing, right? Just we are referring the object values here. Yeah, you can see it is just showing me LWC parent to child communication happening. Same way, if we can pass it some other variables which have just have to define in an object and pass it parameters, and the same parameters we can pass it multiple parameters in a particular methods. So yeah, this way we can do communication from parent to child. So there are two things. When first we have to passing a properties value, like just one variable. When we have to pass it one variable value, we can just use like API decorators in the variable and pass it the variable with the parent, with the child component inside a parent component. And if we want to pass it a method, then the method, the syntax is just a different, the method is just a different. So inside a child component we have to just write simple functions that we are gonna use, and inside the parent component, whatever we event or whatever, like if we click on a button or checkbox, whatever we calling a event in the functions, we have to call it, just declare the query selector, declare the child component as a variable, and in the variable we can just pass it, calling the method here. Any doubts on that?
I admit, this is Lokesh.
Hi, Lukash.
Actually, can you open that code? I have some doubt.
Which one?
Can you open that parent component? This
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Can you print that line number 8 in the console.log so that I can see what it is printing that the child component where?
This one.
Yes, yes. So you are telling like we can pull that entire component, right? So which one we have to pull?
Yes, yes. When I click on button, you can see, one second, did I deploy this one? One second.
Add plus.
It will work with that. You can see, this is like handler of all the things and the targets, whatever the events we are passing. So the query selector will get all the information of child.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone?
Yeah, when to use at the rate API and do not use at the rate API? Can I explain?
Your voice is not clear.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Some background noise coming.
Okay, let me ping you on the Skype.
Yeah, I think some like cooler or maybe something. Okay, so please explain again when to use at the rate API and without that, and how to communicate cross component communication. Uh, okay, so first let me take, please explain again when to use API. So API, when we use, when we have want to make it the variable or method to publicly available for the another components, or maybe like if we are using integrations and we have to pass it up, pass it some parameters from the third party to our components, right? Then we have to use at the rate API decorators. So it will do it will make any variable or any functions publicly exposed. It make the expose these variables or these functions. So that is when we have to use it, when we have to publicly expose the variables for another component use or for the another third party integrations, we use at the rate API. And how to communicate cross component communication. What do you mean by cross component? Like
Cross component means it is not a parent child. It is an independent component.
Unrelated. Yeah, we will talk about like after the break. We will talk about the two things, like from this is we discuss parent to child, and after that we can discuss child to parent, and then after that unrelated components.
Another question is that how deeply is the parent-child communication is valid? Means if a parent and child has another child, though there is a hierarchy of
Yeah,
parent-child,
yeah.
parent-child.
Yes, yes, yes.
So how it is valid? It is valid to one parent-child has communication to child, or another child has its communication to child. What is the level of there is a restriction or not?
Yeah, I think there is some restriction. I didn't know about that particular because I haven't used it like in a deep, but yeah, we can pass it like from parent to you can say grandchild, right? Parent to child, and then child to this child, grandchild, right? So we can pass it parameters, but if we want to pass it parameters from parent to grandchild, then first we have to use it a child, right? We have to pass it a parameter from parent to child, and then this child will become parent and the grandchild will become child. So this way we can communicate inside hierarchy.
Okay, thanks.
Arpit, we have to use at the rate API only, right? In the child components, there is no other way, right? For passing the parent to child communication.
Yeah, we have to use like make it a variable. If you want to make it a variable, then we have to use at the rate API.
Yes.
And
There
if you
is no
want
other
to
way, right?
there is one another way like lightning messaging service, but it was a typical to use. That is why we use a simple, because it is related, right? Parent to child related. If it is not unrelated, it is not related, then we use a lightning messaging service. We will talk it about like after the break.
Okay. Thanks.
Deepak is saying, can you focus on learning only wire or imperative? Yeah, we already discussed the wire and imperatives yesterday, wire yesterday and imperative today. So you can go through the videos. No more questions?
Is there a state management in AWC like some other framework?
Which one?
State management, like
State management,
in React we use a Redux type or some other patterns.
I didn't get you. Can you repeat?
Like if there are multiple components and parent child components, and there are multiple components on a page, and we want to maintain a state of a page.
Yes, yes, yes.
So how can we achieve in here in LWC?
Yeah, like we can use we can redux statement management. There is one thing like when we want to mention we can use a JavaScript applications, right? So and like where the data is shared, when the data is shared among components, right? So it might be confusing, right, actually where a state should live, right? So we can use a box organizing, and also uh, like get dispatch, dispatch and subscribe, like this. So we can subscribe to another component, and we can dispatch the event from one component to another component. So that is where we can mention this, maintain the states of that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so we can move ahead with the child to parent. So for the child to parent communications, uh, just like we did here, we use API decorators and all. And for the child to parent communication, we have to go from inner component to outer components, right? For this, we have to create the custom events. We have to first use a create a custom events, and then in the custom events, whatever the events, like let's suppose on click on something, on click on buttons, we have to pass it the parameters from child to parent. Then we have to use it, create a custom event. Then in the child component, we have to create a event, custom events, our custom events. And after that, we have to dispatch that event, we have to dispatch this event. And in the parent component, in the HTMLs, we can use the event, whatever the events, like the child is dispatching the event, so we have to handle that event in the parent. So how to handle that event? We have to handle it inside the child component HTMLs, like we are using a child button click, right? So we can use on child button click, and after that we can pass it our parent component event, and in the parent component event we can handle this event, and we can perform anything, any operations, right? So we can discuss it after the break. We can give the, we can discuss this, get the hands on this after the break, right? So we will meet on 11:20. Uh, Hi Anand.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we'll meet by 11:20. No?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Just inform in the message as well. So
yeah, okay.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have a break and we'll meet by 11:20. Okay. Hmm. Very good. Hmm. Yeah, hi. Can you start the session now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good. Can you start the meeting now? Harpreet Gupta, can you start the session?
Hello everyone. Yeah, hi. So let's start again. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So as I talking about when we have to call a event or any sending some method or any event from child to parents, then we will use custom events. We have to create a custom events, and in that custom events, so the custom events can be any events that apart from the standard events like on click, on mouse over, on button click, on change. So like this, apart from this, we can create our custom events, and in these events we can dispatch the events, and after the dispatching an events in parent component, we have to handle that event, and after the handling of the event, we can perform any operations that we want. So let's start with the developments. So this is my child component, right? So in this, I am handling a child event. Let's take it one example here. In the div section, I'm taking a lightning button label. Enter me on parent. So on click of this button, I will handle the event. So in the event, so this is the event, like whenever we click on the button in the child components, I want to pass it some information from child to parent. So on click on this button, handle me on parent, this event will fire. So let me check it. Let me deploy this. handle me on parent. So this is the child component. In this one is coming, it is showing me handle events on child here. So I think this is working. Now we want to fire some information from child to parent. So for this I will create a child event.
Seems your voice is very low.
Hello.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, fine, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Child event. I will create a new custom event. So in this custom event, I can just press it like child event. So we have to create any events, like we can create a event using some keywords. We can use any text, but make sure we didn't use a standard keywords like click, mouse, hover, or on change, right? On rendering, on key up, anyone. We can't use that because it contradict the standard events and it can be like give us error. So we have that event. Now we have to dispatch, right? Dispatch the events. Here. Yeah, I am deploying this. Now in the parent component, I want to call it, right? So first of all, in the parent component, what I can do, I have to, this is my event. This is my event name. So I can use this event name, and before using an event, I just have to prefix on and child event. So whatever the events I'm doing, right, it is like it is dispatching the event. Which event? The child event. And this child event is pressing here like this. So in this I can handle my parent component, right? And this in the parent handler event. I can either like make it alert, like calling from child using custom events, right? So yeah, so for calling from child to parent, first step is create an event, like whatever the events I am taking, like on click of my button, one event will fire. This event will create a custom event, and these custom events we can use any keywords, and this custom events is fetching, dispatching the events whatever whenever. So if any components is handling that event, so how to handle the event? In the child component tag, we can use the event name and prefix with on, and do whatever we informations, whatever processing we want to do. So let's deploy this one. As well. Yeah, yeah, this one was that. So you can see handle event on child. So right now it is showing console, right? After that it will showing me here I am handling that. So in that, it is giving me an alert like calling from child using custom events, right? So same way we can use that. Now if I want to send some parameters from child to parent, so how can I use that? So simple, after the event declaration, we can just use parameters in a object form. So I am using a detail and a single parameter coming from child. Wait, I will just not. Yeah, so I have to pass it some parameters, then I can use in a object, I can use a details, and in details I can pass it a single parameters from coming from child, and I just dispatch. And how to handle this in a parent? Simple, we can use it like this. Suppose this is the parent value, right? I have to show the parent value. So this dot parent value, right? I am firing an event. In that event, I am using a detail parameter, the detail, right? And this is called a first parameter, right? So detail, yeah, I have to show event dot detail, right? That is this is the way I can share this. And yeah, I can use it another maybe alert. Let's refresh it. Let's change this. When we click on that, okay, it is calling from child custom events, right? Handle event on child, and click on that. Single parameters, it is coming null here. Yeah, you can see single parameters coming from child. It is not printing in the alert. Yeah, because it is not showing, because alert stop the execution. So I will just put it like this only. Let me refresh again. Yeah, so right now you can see this is the coming as a parent value, right? So what is this? Like parent value, I'm showing the parent value here in the child component, right? This one, right? Let me text there. This is the response. So if you can see right now it is coming like this is the response of a parent value, right? So it is going into the child value, right? Child value is right now the child value, but since it is coming from this, coming from parent, so it is setting in the default parent value, right? This is parent value. So when we click on this button inside a child component like handle me on parent with single parameter, right? When we click on this, what will happen? Handle child event with fire, handle child event with fire. It will create a custom event with the parameters of detail like single parameters coming from child, right? This parameter I can handle it using on child event in the parent event handler function. In this parent event function, what I am using is I am setting this dot parent value with the event dot detail, right? So my value, what is the value of that single parameter coming from child, right? So the parent value is setting as a single parameter coming from a child, right? This parent value, if you can see in the parent HTML, this is again going into the child component, right? Parent value, it is going into the child component, and it is already it is setting the child value here, right? So that way we can communicate from child to parent and then parent to child, right? We are sending some parameters from child to parent and then after that parent to child. So when we click on that, you can see it is changing single parameter coming from child, right? So this way we can do child to parent and parent to child as well, or we can just show a child to parent. And if you want to show anything like this thing, you can set it single param. So in the single param, I will comment this. Right. So let me just deploy it. Single parameter. So you can see this is response of parent parameter, but the single parameter. So this way we can just put it from the child to parent, right? We just setting a variable. So just like we did with our same parameter in the same component, we can do that. Now if I want to pass multiple parameters, right? This is I'm passing a single parameter. Now I have to pass a multiple parameters. So how can I do that? So let's copy this. So instead of passing like details, right? So what we can do in the detail, we can't do this like detail and after that comma and then like let's suppose a result true, like this we can't set it like this. if we want to send multiple parameters, then in the detail we have to create another object like this, and in this object we can pass it our parameters. Like if I'm passing a first para, second parameter coming from child, save it, and the same the dispatch events, right? Deploy. So this will fire me multiple parameters. Now if I want to use multiple parameters, right? So what I can use, one more thing like multiple parameters. Multiple parameter, and so instead of writing this event dot detail, right, from the detail we are getting with the event this one dot detail, and after that I want to use a first para and second para like this. So what I can use, this one after event dot detail dot first para. So this will give me a first para. Same with this dot multiple para. We want event dot detail dot is the second para like this. May refresh it. Handle beyond parent like multiple parameters. So when you click on that, you can see first parameter coming from child. Here multiple parameter like second parameter coming from child, right? If you like unable to see, I can set it as a alert as well, like second pair. can see. Okay, why it is not coming? That, yeah, I add plus here. So first parameter coming from child and second parameters coming from child, right? So that is why we can send an alert, and we can send multiple parameters in our object. We can set it some array as well, like this third param, and in that we can set it like any array, like India, Sri Lanka, like this. We can set it an array, and this array, after that, if we can get the array, we can assign it to any variable, and we can iterate over the list, like looping or iterations we can do like this. So, and we can also add object inside this object, right? So this is an object, so we can just use a inside the, this is a object inside under the object, and we can use it here in the parent component. Or if we want to send after like some processing, like if the child is giving me something, and based on the condition I have to do some operations, and then send the, again the send the passing the parameters again in the child component. So we can just use add parameters here, like any parameters if you want, and we can send it right away. So this way we can handle a parent to child communication and child to parent communications. Any doubts in that so far? No one?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, how can we define like whether we need to use parent-child combination or child-to-parent combination? How you can define from our real-time project like this?
Uh, yeah, like we can define it. Suppose the child, the component communication is parent to child is happening, like it increase the reusability of a component. Okay. See, suppose let's based on some data from a parent, I want to show the data into the child. Okay, the same child component I can use it any component, any parent component. I can make it this child component to any parent component, right? And I can, if these events is firing, right? So I can handle these events on any parent component, multiple parent components, right? So there are some conditions when suppose I am inputting something, and based on that input I want to show contact details or a filter of contacts, right? I want to send it. Suppose I am setting in one component, I have to show the accounts based on the rating, right? Either hot, warm, or cold. And in the second component, based on the industry, I have to show the component. I have to show the values of that particular component. What? So I can, what I can do, I can set it two parameters, right? First parameters is for the rating, and second parameter is for the industry in the same component. I can create one component, right? And I can use this component either in the rating filter, and either it can be in the industry filter. So this way we can use it like that. And the, if I'm selecting a rating, I can choose if the rating is coming, I can see in the child component, okay, rating is coming, then I can filter it with the rating. Or if the coming as a industry filter, industry have some value, then I can send it, I can send the data with the industry filter. Got it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I got the point. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone?
I mean, which is the best one? Like you in uses, which will be the best one? Parent to child or child to parent? It is the best.
Uh, Basically, like the both are best. It depends on your crack condition.
Okay.
Yeah, where you want to communicate, right? If you want to pass it a parameters from outer to inner, then it is the parent to child. And if you want to passing a parameter from child to parent, then it is like inner to inner to outer, then it is child to parent, right?
Okay.
So it basically depends on your conditions. You can use either parent to child or child to parent.
If I'm using multiple parent these things, I can use for the conditional based also, right? It's not to go for only single one can be used.
Yes. You can use any child component in many parent components. You can make it one child to, into the many parent component.
Okay.
But let's make sure that if you are firing some events like custom events, and it is handling on like different parents, then you can handle it properly. Like you don't know, yeah, you don't send the from parent to child the parameters like again in the same in the single variables. So what it can do, like it can overridden the values, right? If you are sending let's suppose you have one screen, right, one app, and in which you are using the same child component into two parent component, okay,
Yes.
right? So it will fire again the parent to child, right? So it will overridden the values, and again it will parent to child. If you are firing again, then it will overridden the values, right? So if you are using that, make sure you create a different components like parent to child, one parent to child in a different component, and one parent to child in a different component.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, let's move to another communication. Let communication between unrelated components. So unrelated components, it means the components is not linking to each other or can be linking to each other, but make sure if these are the links, then the best option is go with the parent to child and child to parent communication. And if it is not unrelated, like one component is placing in some other place, right? And here let's say this is the component where two elements, like one is parent and child, right? From the child you want to send some data into another unrelated component, then you can use a lightning messaging service, LMS. This is called in a short LMS channel, right? So you can use it same way. You can use it from one component to either this component, like element, you can send it right away here. Vice versa, you can send it either from this element to this element or this element to this element, right? And again you are passing some data from this element to this, and then again you are passing some data to this event, and again you make it from this element to this element, right? So it can be happen in the same like window in the same document, right? It can be in the same window in the same document, so we can use it. So how we can use it? So these are the things to communicate across the unrelated component. We have to use a lightning messaging service that is called LMS. So it is a publish and subscribe service, that is also LMS is also called PubSub. the prefix of publish and the prefix of subscribe. So it is also called a pub-sub service, pub-sub model. So what is the benefit of that LMS? So you can communicate between same lightning components, between Aura to LWC or LWC to Aura, and between VF to LWC and LWC to VF. So this is a very benefit of that LMS service. So how to communicate? First is we have to create a lightning messaging channel. So we have to create a messaging channel. What is it mean by? First we have to create a channel in which the publishers and the subscriber can go through. It's like a bridge where in one side there will be a publisher that is sending some data through the channel, and after the channel ending, the subscriber will handle or subscribe for that channel that can handle and that can pass through the data, that can pass and that can handle the data, right? So this way we can communicate. So let's first go into the first step, that is called creating a lightning messaging channel. So how to create a lightning messaging channel? So first you need to create a folder over here. So what you can do inside the default, you have to create one folder. So I will create a new folder with the name message channels. So make sure you are using correct letters, message channel. So it will be the new folder in a message channel below the LWC. So here you can create a LWC message channel. So how to create a message channel? So you can just use a new file. What is the file combinations? A name, whatever the naming you made, name dot a message channel, the keyword of message channel, and it will be the meta file, XML file. So let's use LMS. I'm using LMS underscore com. Okay, and after that message channel dash meta dot XML. This have I can use it, right? And inside this we have to pass it some XML data. So what is the data? Let me write down for you, or just I will copy paste from my documents. It's a so what is it describe? Same way as we are using let's I give you a class, right? So here you can see in the class meta file, what is that dot class slash meta XML, right? The same way we have to use a message channel, same way, yeah, as we are using lightning message like js dot meta XML, the same naming convention go with the message channel. And here in the apex class, as you can see, we are using apex class tag, right? And in that we are using XML ns, and the source of that soap dot the link, and after that whatever the API version and status, right? So same way we can use it lightning messaging channel. in the lightning messaging channel, we have the description like message channel to pass text value or whatever the value. And in that, we have to make it publicly available. That is like we can expose it, right? And after that, we have to use a lightning messaging fields, right? So lightning messaging fields is what is the description, what is the field description, and the field name. So make sure you are using a field name like this. There is no can be like a space or something. We have to just use it like this. And if you want to pass it multiple parameters, then you can just copy this and paste it right away and make it another field name, right? So you can pass it a multiple parameters. And yeah, let's deploy this. And after that, a master label. So it is not necessary, but you can do it for the differentiation. What is the error? Oh, I did not save it right. Yeah, it is successful. So first step, we are clear, like we create a lightning message channel, right? Now create a LWC components. Let's delete that all the things. Creating a LWC pub. So first component will be my publisher, right? So here I will publish the data through the message channel, right? And the second will be my subscribe model that will handle the subscription of that channel. So let's go into the pub, right? And create lightning card of a title. This will be my publisher component. In the div tag, I will create a lightning input text with the label enter your text and the type of text. So on click of this, right, on change, I will handle this name change handler. This will be my publisher component. So whatever the scenario is, whatever I am typing here, this will print me in another component. Like how like let's suppose I am typing something here, right? This, so this will show me in the second component. Okay, so this will give me own change. So in the JS, what we can do, we can use a event on change event handler, right? Let's use console.log name is changing. Same way, yeah. So let's make it available for the home page. It is deployed. Let's make it another component. It will be my subscriber component. Here I will print, right? Right, so I can use a lightning formatted text. So the value will be, let's make it a display text. Okay.
It should be a title.
Oh yes, yes. Yeah, in the JS I'm using a display text here. Just make it expose. Let's edit. So I will just remove this. Yeah, we have LWC pubs and LWC or subscription. So right now, yeah, whenever I am typing something, it should display me right away here, right? And this is, the component is not related to each other, right? This is a different component. So let's go one by one. So here, yeah, yeah, we can check it here, right? Name is changing, right? If I am deleting here, yeah, so means it is giving me an event handler, right? So in the event handler, what I can use, just I have to pass it the variable, right? So uh, I can use a name value here. It will be the same event dot target dot value, and I will make it as an object. We have to send it as an object. So name text. sorry, in this, we have to use it, the variable, same way we are mentioning in the channel. Here we are mentioning a text variable here, right? So we have to make sure we have to use the same variable here. So that way I can get the text value, name value, right? Now I have to use it. I have to publish this. So how can I publish this? So there is one called publish, right? This publish method function have, if you can see, this is three things, right? First is a message context, which will be the return type of object. Second will be the message channel, that is also object, and the message, what we are going to send a message. And fourth is a optional, like publisher option, that will be the option, and it what will be the options of that. So we are using first a three, right? So first is a message context. So what is the message context? So we have to first, as I'm using a publish, you can see directly it will import me publish from a lightning messaging service, right? It is already right now, before that it was not there, right? So for the publish, I want my message context. I will also import the message context for the publishers, as it is give me three parameters to publish, right? So first will be my this dot message context, right? And for this, first of all, we have to wire the property by using the message context. So we can't use directly here. So what we can use @wire, right? So it will import me wire, and inside the wire, I will use this message context, and I can set it any variable. So let me use a message context in a small, like this. Second thing will be my channel, like message channel, right? So message channel, what is my message channel? So I have to import the message channel. So import, how to import? Let's suppose I am using a variable here, import text change channel, right? From which I want to import @Salesforce slash message channel slash which thing, right now, what is the name here? So how to naming the convention, here you can see I am using a LMS comp, right? So how can you use it? Just like LMS comp, it will follow the custom object scenario, custom object format, like LMS comp, after that __c. Okay, so this way I can import the message channel here, and I can use it here, and after that, whatever the variable, like message, right? So I am sending the text variable here. So this way I can publish my message or convey my message to this message channel. Okay, now whatever the component, which component is subscribed to this channel, will get this value. the text value, whatever I'm changing here right away. So for this, I am using this subscribe model, right? So here I have to use a subscription, right? So for that, I can use a one thing, like call it subscription. First, let us set it as a null. After that, we have to subscribe, right? So subscribe, how to subscribe this? We create a method called subscription to message channel. Okay, this will handle our subscription. So this subscription will handle our subscription value. So we have to use us just like we use the publisher. Here we have subscribe function. In the subscribe function, we have same things, a message context, a message channel, and the listener, right? Earlier it was what when we using a publish method, the earlier it was showing a message, right? Which message I want to send. Here the subscribe will listen that message, right, and show us the message, right? So first of all, I have to use a message context, right? So how to use a message context? So same way you are we are using here. So instead of after the subscribe, we can just use a message context, and after that we have to wire this thing, wire, right? Yeah, to import the wire. So this will be my message context. After that, a message channel, right? The same way as we import the message channel here, same way we can import right away here. So the same subscription channel, and now I need a listener, right? So listener will be a function, not the object, right? You can see listener will be a function. So function, I can use a simply a function like I am using right now here, arrow function, because I just want to display the function, right? And here I can create a message here, right? So this is a handle message. It means what is done? It will do the handling of that message, right? So handle oh, what is handling? It will handle my message over here, right? This dot, I have to show it in a display text, right? So what is my message? My message is a text variable, right? So how can I use? I can use a message dot this whatever variable we are sending, like this. You can just copy this, and also you can just use it right away here as well. But I am showing you how to deal with this, because like there may be chances when you have to send some objects and send some multiple parameters, or maybe long object or complex objects, then you can handle in a different function. It is good practice to handle in a different, so you can get the idea, right? And Yeah, so this one is complete, and after that, whenever the subscription will happen, right, it will fire this subscription. And so we have to connect this, like we have to load the component. Whenever we are firing something from here, it will go to here, but it will not invoke automatically, right? We have to invoke this. So for this, we have to use a connected callback. Right, so connected callback, what it will do, it will invoke the listener subscription function. Let's deploy this. Deploy this. Yeah. Let's see if it is happening. Okay, it is giving me an error. Okay, so I am publishing. Okay, I have to send it, not the text variable, because it is not, it is inside the name value, right? The message. I have to send it a object, particular object. Then this will handle the whole message, and then after message dot text variable. So whatever we messaging it dot text variable. Right, and you can see. Right, whatever on change. So what is happening is on change of an event, right? This is on change of an event. We are publishing the message, right? You can send it as a object or maybe as a just like the simple things, simple text variables. And after this, these, for the publish, we have 3 parameters, 4 parameters actually, for one is optional. So yeah, this dot message context, a message context, a message channel, and the variable. Message context is that which service are we have to use, right? So we are using a import message service of message context. So for this, we have to wired up, like to access the Salesforce data, we have to wired up. So it is a like property, right? So we can use it in a single line. And after that, a message channel, in which channel, through which channel we are passing the data, right? So we are passing the data through the message channel lsm c. So what is the, as we are using lms comp, you can see we are using lightning messaging field. So whatever field we are mentioning here, we have to mention the same way here, right? And what is the message, right? And we have to make sure we are using a custom objects like __ c suffix, right? And what is the message we are going to publish, right? So we publish the message, right? Whatever the changing name is changing. After that, we have to show it into the subscriber. So subscriber, what is it will do, it will subscribe, it will listen what message are this channel is sending, right? So this channel, so we have another 3 parameters. First is message context. We are using which service, like message service, which channel, through which channel we are listening, and what are we listening, right? We are listening some data. So we have to handle this data. So it is good practice to use the handle the data in a different function. You can create a different function and do some operations, do any operations, you can right away do it here. And just display text right away through the message dot a text variable, right? And this will handle the subscription. And how to invoke the subscription? We have to load the connected callback, right? We have to load the component subscription, this component. We have to load the component right away. So this will loading the component, and whatever we're typing here, it will just printing right. This. So this is the how to communicate, right? So I'm showing you how to communicate between two LWC. A same way you can use Aura component communication and also Visualforce page communication. The syntax can be different. So you can search on that, but we have to use the same messaging services to communicate between LWC to any other components, like any other framework like Aura framework, Visualforce framework, right? So this if the Aura component, if the LWC component is a publisher, means it is sending data from LWC to Aura, then we have to use the same publisher concept from publisher syntax in the LWC. Aura syntax can be different to listen this component, right? To listen this message channel, and Visualforce can be also different. The same way, if we are sending the data from Aura to LWC, then LWC will act as a subscriber. It means we have to subscribe to this channel and listen whatever the messaging are sending, right? So we have to use the same concept here. And the sending, like publishers of Aura, can be different, so we can use that. And these are the steps. We have to create first the lightning messaging channel. So if you don't have any folders, first you have to create a message channels for folder. Inside you can have to just create a meta file of any messaging channel. You have to just name it like that, and after the naming, if you have to use, just put __c. The same way message channel meta file. And in the fields, right, if you have to send another fields, right, you can send lightning messaging fields, right, same way and this way. So in the fields you can send any object, any text, any boolean, anything. You can send any variables. And after that, publisher component, as I show you, the publisher component and the subscriber components. So it will be the subscription. Yeah, so this one is completed.
I have.
Uh, yeah.
Can
you
go to the code?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm audible.
can you talk some louds?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Yes, I'm able to. Yeah.
the question is like, I mean, here we are creating a channel here.
Yes.
Channel. Do we have any default templates to create this channels?
This is the default. Like this is the default. You can find it in anywhere. This is a simple, like you can find it anywhere. Like if you search for the Google, it will give
You can
you.
override, you mean to say that, right? Those things.
What is?
I mean, you can override those channels, you mean to say?
Already written channel.
Yes.
Yeah, you can override based on your condition, like based on your requirement, if you want to override it, but make sure this channel is not using anywhere, right?
Okay.
So this is like lightning messaging. You can also like metadata in that. So these are the things, like description is exposed, fields, right? So fields can be any type of that, right? So you can find it here.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I got it. And one more question. Can I go to?
Yes.
Here we made it, and in publish we made it like at the rate wire.
Mhm.
Just we can, I mean, this is the pass-through data, like, I mean, message data. But
Yeah, basically it is for connecting a wired to this component to the lightning messaging service of Salesforce org. So this org, right? This org have some messaging services, right? So we have to wire this thing up.
I mean, why can't we use @ API here? Can we use API, right? It's not.
No, like it is for the wiring. It is not like it is not. We are not publicly exposing any variable, right?
No. Here, communication between the component to component. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now it is happen like once after assigning, like, defined here, that can be accessed. I mean, it will be a public @ API means it will be public. I can add it in other component, right? Why to use here wire? That's
Basically, like wire is just used for the this message context. Like we can't make this is not a variable.
okay. I got it.
This is not a variable, right? So that is why.
And one more question.
Yeah.
A subscription.
Mhm.
We use that connected callback.
Callback. Yeah.
I mean,
Basically, it is.
once,
Yeah.
I mean, once after completion of our service call, do we need to manually disconnect, or it will automatically disconnect?
Yeah, you can manually disconnect this based on like your requirements. It's just a simple example I'm doing. You can just like after this you are calling this, right? So inside this, if the subscription is done, then you can pass it disconnected callback,
Okay, sure.
right?
Generally, what purpose these wire service? I mean, not wire. I mean,
This communication, unrelated component.
unrelated communication will be happen. I mean, basically, what purpose these communications?
Yeah,
real
let's see, like let's imagine one example. Suppose there is one project, one client you have that is suppose like maybe loan components, like a loan, you are applying for a loan, right? So here it will show you like in the opportunity, like if we go to one opportunity, right? So when we click on opportunity, I want a custom, I created some custom components, right? So based on like if suppose I am this based on something, I am updating the stage, right? So upon stage you can see these invoked, right? So for these same things, if I want to, based on some stage, I want to invoke my components and I want to display some other information, right? Based on like suppose you applied for a loan, so you are not approved, you just applied for a loan, right? So your initial stage will be prospecting or something, right? So based on prospecting, the your user the whichever the loan assessor seeing your application will have to see some other things, right? Like it should be verification for like ID verifications or KYC, right?
Yes.
Once it you will done the KYC or something, right? So this loan assessor will have to make sure, okay, whatever the loan is asking here, right? What he can repay, the CIBIL score, something like that, right? So it invoke or display the some information
which is not related to the end user. I mean,
yeah,
for that. Okay.
yes.
Thanks, and thank you.
Yeah, anyone?
Please share that PPT once. I mean,
Sure.
it will be helpful.
I will share the all the components that we created in the sessions. Share with Anand, so he will share it with you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Any doubts on that? Anyone? So yeah, we can wait for one thing. And like, thank you for attending the session. And also in the 360-degree clouds, we are also hiring some talented peoples. We are also recruiting some like Salesforce developers, senior developers, all the things, leads, right? So if anyone have interested, you can just email the resume to me. It is like my email ID is arpit.gupta@360degreecloud.in, or you can just directly share resume or direct HR@360degreecloud.in. If anyone have doubts, we can continue in any topic what we covered so far.
Hi, Arpi.
Hi.
So I have one doubt. So you mentioned the folder name as a messaging channel.
Message channel. Yeah.
Channels, and while importing, you mention only messaging channel.
Where?
In the pub sub and in.
Yeah. So here the folder contains all the message channels, right? But as you can see, same way you can see, right? Here in the Apex class we have classes, right? But here
Yes.
we have Apex class, right? So
Okay.
it is a single class, right? So same way here we have a folder is can contain multiple message channels, but here we are creating only one message channel, right? So that is why we are using only a Salesforce message channel.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi team, any other questions, any clarifications?
I want to know one thing. LMS underscore CC. I mean, from where you got that one? I mean,
This
comp
one?
underscore CC.
Yeah, so you can find this one is basically if you want to import any channel, right? So first you will create the channel here, right? Apex like LMS comp, the channel name and the syntax. The syntax will be same, like after the name dot message channel dash meta dot xml, right? So if you created, suppose you created a new file here like lms2, after the dot all the context like message channel dash meta xml will be the same, and after the referring this lms referring you have to use underscore underscore c custom things. So yeah, you can use that. Yeah, and you can find it like you can just go copy this things and search it in the Google, so you will find how to use that, right?
Okay.
You can just use it. It all you can find it in the developers guide here, right? So you can find it anywhere like this. This is also like how to communicate with Aura, right? So you can explore these things.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Hi, Arpit, Deepak here.
Hi Deepak.
Like I want to know, like I am new to Salesforce, so I am focusing on LWC. So do we have
Okay.
to learn Visual Force and Aura also? Like, or like I heard that in some article that they are the legacy ones, right?
Yes, see that like Salesforce is very much old, right? So in the starting only Visual Force for the UI components only Visual Force was there, right? So if you are mapping into some projects there, you only map to the old clients where they are still using Visual Force pages, then you have to you got to like you have to know knowledge about some knowledge about the
Yeah,
VF
like
pages.
VF
And
pages and controller.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And also like Aura components is started like launched at 2014, right? So and the LWC is launched in the 2018-19. So you can say like people of like client is still using some of the Aura components, right? And since LWC is compatible with Aura, so the client didn't convert some of the client didn't convert their existing Aura components to LWC because they are compatible with each other, right? So that's where you have to some knowledge about the Aura component as well.
Okay, and like
But
while
yeah,
applying CSS to LWC components, I like what are the resources to learn that like CSS?
yeah, CSS is just like simple CSS, simple standard CSS. There are no such thick framework. You just have to create a new file here, right? When you create a lightning component, it will just give the three bundles, like three files in a bundle: HTML, JS, and the meta file. And if you want to apply CSS, either you can apply CSS in the HTML, or you can just create a CSS file inside the folder, right? And make it call it from call it here in the HTML by using like scripting and this, right?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, for Aura component, we are having a session, 3-week session is there. That too is from 360, they are taking the Aura session also. The basic, as he said, no, mostly a new project is coming, means we will be working on LWC for existing customer who is having the Salesforce page or something. For them only, we are going to work on that. Other than that, LWC, mostly all the new projects, new things, we are working on LWC only. So for
Yeah.
your information, and then for existing, we need a support for that only. We have planned LWC as 5 sessions and ARA as 3 sessions. For the ARA component, we can have a basic understanding of those things, whereas you have to familiar with LWC. Okay. So if you know JavaScript, it will be easy for both ARA and this thing.
Yeah, so basic knowledge about the JavaScript is compulsory if you are working on Visual Force or Aura or LWC, anyone. So JavaScript is a necessity language.
Just go through basic things, then advanced things. So it will be very useful.
Yeah, Anand. So for next week also, Arpit is coming for training. That's one thing.
This week,
No,
no, next week he is not available due to his personal works and all. So
Okay.
some other colleagues from 360 will be there. Whatever things he has left over here, he'll be taking from there. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for your wonderful sessions for last 2 days. I think our team has learned about LWC basic to then decorators and communicating between components. These are the things what we will be mostly will be using it for all the projects. We'll be having these things will be there. Just practice yourself. Try to do explore as much you can, like how to call LWC from RA to LWC, everything. Just have a try. Just go to that common library. In that we are having a developer guide is there. Go through it until you practicing it. It is hard because while seeing the video or while attending the session, it will be looks like we have understood a lot. But once you do it from your side, that time only you will be facing some issues. So at that time you can Google it and you can find it. That won't be or forget. So try it as much as possible. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you all. Do you have any other questions or anything? Can you end up the call? For project assignment, kindly update the Excel sheet so that it will be helpful for us to finalize that what are the projects. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you all of you.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks. Thanks.